Hey guys, Nina here, welcoming you to another reading from the Ladies of Horror Picture Prompt Monthly Challenge, hosted by Elaine Pascale on her channel, The Godmother of Horror. If you'd like to read along or read previously published pieces, please visit spreadingthewritersword.com or ladiesofhorror.com. In the meanwhile, enjoy the reading.
Fish's Rods by Elaine Pascale. They searched for Joe in the dense morning fog. He said to meet him here, Sam said. The pictures he sent yesterday were this exact spot. Russ ran his hand through his hair, scanning the shoreline. Probably met some girl and bailed on us. A girl? Overfishing? Have you met Joe? Sam began walking along the water, stopping periodically to peer through his binoculars. We've been planning this for too long. No way he'd bail. Russ sat on his cooler and began to set up his reel. We can start without him then. He'll show up soon. Probably just stop for coffee or something. Sam nodded and walked down the beach a bit so they wouldn't get their lines tangled when casting. He didn't like the look of this lake. The water was dark and it had a slightly sulfuric smell. The men cast a few times and decided to walk further down the shoreline. Thought he'd be here by now, Sam said. He was going to continue lamenting Joe's absence when Russ asked, Isn't that his phone? Yeah, it is. They both stared at the phone that was still nestled in Joe's belt holster that they had always made fun of. The leather had teeth marks on it. He was hungry enough to gnaw on that. He must have taken off for some grub. Nah, we would have seen him leaving. You and I been all over this lake. We've been here. Russ looked at his watch. Christ, we've been here 3 hours already. Fog should have burned off by now, Sam said. Oddly, the fog seemed thicker than before. I'm thinking we should pack up. Sam was surprised that his friend would end a day of fishing so soon. We still have some hours left. Besides, we can't reach Joe to tell him where we are if his phone is still here. One more time around the lake to look for him, then we go, Russ said. The men walked a slow circle, taking turns looking through binoculars at the deserted lake. The fog made it nearly impossible to see very far until the sun broke through, shining directly onto two objects 50 yards away from them. Russ peered through the binoculars again. Those are tournament rods, just floating there. Sam was bewildered. Saltwater? What kind of idiot would use them out here? And what kind of idiot would leave them behind with that price tag? Russ dropped the binoculars, failing to notice that they had circled back and were standing beside Joe's phone again. This day might not be a total loss. What do you say we go out and grab 'em? It's not too deep there. It's before the drop-off. Besides, I'm getting hot. Sam had to admit that the unseasonably warm air was getting to him, too. The heat seemed to radiate from the fog. The men took off their boots and jeans and waded into the water in their underwear. The water was thick, like soup. Each step proved more difficult to take than the last. Almost there, Russ encouraged Sam. One for each of us. Joe's going to be pissed when he sees what we caught. The rods were still in the center of the ray of sun, and they glistened as if in a showcase instead of floating atop murky water. The men reached out, each focusing on a separate rod without discussing it in advance. The rods slid into their hands almost as if willing themselves to be possessed. Let's go. Russ attempted to take some steps forward, only to find that he was dragged back to the sunspot. Sam tried to let go of his rod, but his hands were fastened. Russ, I'm stuck. Russ's eyes grew wide. Me too, man. I feel like I'm being pulled. Before he could finish, Russ was yanked beneath the water by some unseen force. Sam felt his knees buckle. Something was on the other end of his line. Something he couldn't see, but it felt very strong. Russ's head bobbed to the surface. Help! He cried. Sam wanted to explain that he couldn't help, that he was busy fighting to stay above the surface himself. He had no time to say anything before Russ was submerged again. Sam felt a large entity swim by him, and the rod he held went taut. He was being pulled, and the more resistance he applied, the more he sank. Help! He called, knowing it was futile, but having no other option. Within moments, his head was beneath the water. His eyes remained open in fear, And he saw Russ, tangled in a line, flesh being penetrated with hooks. And he saw Joe, or what remained of Joe.